Welcome to this explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you here today because honestly, we are diving into an absolute game changer for mid to senior IT professionals. If you've ever stared at one of those insanely complex, hybrid, multi-cloud identity and access management diagrams and thought, wow, how did we get here and how on earth can I master this? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to walk step by step through the architectural blueprint for mastering modern IAM. And more importantly, we're talking about how to re-architect your own career to become a highly in-demand IAM solution architect. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to construct this explainer exactly how a good architect designs a system, right from the foundation up to the final build. We'll start with the identity imperative, move into the solution architect role, explore some core architecture patterns, map out the required skills and certifications, and finally, talk about mastering the career transition. Let's get started.
Section 1. The Identity Imperative, the Foundation.
So, identity is the new perimeter. Look, if you've been to literally any security conference in the last 5 years, you've heard this 1,000 times, right? It's kind of an industry cliche at this point, but actually, scratch that. Beneath this overused catchphrase is a profoundly complex structural reality. The traditional network wall, it's completely gone. Identity is now the absolute primary control plane determining who gets access to what.
And that brings us right to the hybrid and multi-cloud challenge. Managing identity today is a whole different beast. It means trying to synchronize legacy on-premises Active Directory from a decade ago with modern cloud directories. It means managing Entra ID for your SaaS federation, wrestling with AWS IAM for service permissions, and somehow navigating GCP workforce identity all at the same time. And the kicker? Each one has completely disparate policy syntaxes and audit log formats. It's like trying to speak 4 different languages at once. Managing identity across multiple cloud providers simultaneously creates a massive vulnerability for most enterprises. But for you, the focused learner who really understands this full stack, it creates a highly lucrative and deeply impactful career opportunity.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Solution Architect Role, the Framework. To truly understand the architect role, we really need to contrast the mindset shift required to make the jump. You see, an engineer optimizes for correct and efficient code. They validate their work by actually building it and testing the implementation. But an architect optimizes for fit. As an architect, you aren't just building controls anymore, you're designing the entire governance framework. Your actual job is to translate abstract business risk, complex compliance obligations, and active threats into concrete, workable design patterns.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference in where you sit within the enterprise ecosystem. While an enterprise architect works at a much higher level of abstraction, creating broad capability maps and multi-year strategy timelines, the solution architect is right there in the trenches of the actual systems. If your architecture documents are naming specific vendors like Okta or AWS, and you're referencing exact API versions, you are doing solution architecture. Knowing this distinction is absolutely vital so you know exactly where to position your career.
Now, looking at the standard leveling structure, it's fascinating. A mid-level architect gets promoted by simply designing better systems. But that leap, the leap to senior or principal, that requires adding a completely new dimension to your skill set. Organizational influence. You have to start shaping how the broader team works and how risk is communicated across the entire enterprise, not just within a single isolated technical domain.
Let's ground all this theory in reality, though. What does a typical day actually look like? Well, in the morning, you might be running an architecture review for a brand new SaaS HR platform. You're digging into its SIM capabilities for automated user provisioning, checking SAML for secure authentication, just making sure it meets zero trust standards. Then midday, you're jumping into a post-incident review for an AWS IAM access alert, trying to figure out how a developer misconfigured a pre-commit hook. But then, and here is the crazy pacing shift, by the afternoon, you completely switch gears to give an executive briefing. You're taking all those complex identity risk postures and translating them into clear, actionable language for the CISO. It's a constant, dynamic shift between micro-level technical weeds and macro-level business risk.
All right, let's move on to Section 3, Core IAM Architecture Patterns, the design.
The absolute bedrock enterprise IAM pattern is the centralized identity provider, or IDP. This is where you have a single authoritative source for literally all user identities and applications. Now, the governance benefits here are just immense. Lifecycle changes propagate perfectly, audits are squeaky clean, but it comes with a critical, undeniable reality. It creates a total single point of failure. It's basically like having only one master key to an entire skyscraper. If your central IDP goes down, everything, and I mean everything, stops.
Then we have the federated mesh pattern. Instead of centralizing, you establish trust relationships between multiple distinct identity domains. This pattern is absolutely essential for complex mergers and acquisitions. I mean, consolidating into a single IDP overnight is basically impossible, right? However, as the designer, you have to recognize that while it solves your immediate integration headaches, maintaining these distinct webs of trust over time can quickly turn into an absolute governance nightmare.
Next up is the broker pattern. Think of an identity broker as a highly sophisticated translator sitting right between multiple IDPs and service providers. It mediates trust and translates protocols. So it's like taking older enterprise SAML assertions and magically turning them into modern OIDC tokens for newer web apps. This is an incredibly valuable tool to have in your back pocket during massive organizational transitions and multi-cloud architectures.
So how do you keep track of all this? How do you document which pattern you chose and why? Well, you use an architecture decision record, or an ADR. An ADR captures the decision itself, the context, the options you considered, and most importantly, the rationale. I want to really emphasize this. Documenting your pattern choices in an ADR is the professional artifact that truly distinguishes an architect from an engineer. It proves, on paper, that you understand the why behind the what.
Moving right along to Section 4, Skills and Certifications Map the Materials.
Okay, you might actually want to save or screenshot this exact slide. It perfectly distills the competency matrix required to prove your capability at those mid to senior levels. Notice how it breaks down. You absolutely need deep, foundational expertise in identity protocols and cloud IAM. That's where certifications like the CISSP, CCSP, and cloud-specific exams like the AWS SAP-CO2 really carry weight. But you also need a really solid working knowledge in privileged access management and governance tools. It's about being well-rounded.
But please, whatever you do, do not ignore the soft skills. Having massive technical depth without governance literacy, or without the soft skills to translate risk into executive language, that is going to impose a hard ceiling on your career, period. You must master executive communication. You have to learn how to influence engineering teams without actually having direct management authority over them. If you can't adapt your technical findings to the decision context of whoever you're speaking to, well, your brilliant architecture will probably never actually get built.
And finally, Section 5, Mastering the Career Transition, the Build.
The architect proposes, the engineer validates. This right here is the uncomfortable shift you have to make. Think about it. As an engineer, you get this immediate dopamine hit when your code compiles and the implementation just works, right? But as an architect, you have to find deep, professional satisfaction in designing the architecture, guiding the overall process, and then stepping back and watching someone else validate it through their implementation. It takes a lot of patience and, frankly, a lot of maturity. To prove you can do this at the principal level, you really need to build a public portfolio. Certifications are great for getting past HR filters, for sure, but real-world artifacts differentiate you so much better. Contribute to open-source IAM tools, write technical blog posts analyzing the really tough architecture trade-offs, pitch talks to major security conferences, build out GitHub repositories filled with Terraform modules or open policy agent rules. You have to let the industry see how you think, not just what badges you've collected. Which leaves us with this final crucial question. Are you ready to stop building controls and start designing the framework? Look, stepping back to look at the big picture is incredibly challenging, but it is absolutely the key to re-architecting your own professional journey and becoming a truly indispensable asset in today's multi-cloud world. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this blueprint helps you take that next massive step in your career. Keep learning, keep designing, and I'll see you next time.